Brad Lemack, the business of acting. Let's get right into that. I mean, you have spent your career navigating this remarkable field, and now we're in this world of COVID where there is so much, I think, danger, not not just from COVID, but to theater, to acting, to performance. I mean, it is, a world in which you're right next to each other. But go ahead, Brad. Where do we go with this?
Where you see danger, I see opportunity.
Wonderful.
We will not have it be what it was. It may be quite some time, if ever again, that we will sit at big amphitheaters and small movie houses and be next to each other and have that shared community experience, right? But the role of the arts has taken on such significance to us. First of all, it's important to recognize that out of challenging times historically have always come great stories, great art, great literature, great music, great poetry, right? And everyone will have a story to tell, but not everyone's a storyteller. So we rely upon those artists among us to be able to use their voice, to find a shared voice for all of us. So that will happen. And so we're not going to big venues, but we are returning to television, for example. We've had decades of television ratings plummet. We've had a period of people, consumers, fleeing broadcast television to pay for streaming subscription services, seeking a better quality entertainment than they've been able to find before, right? So at the same time, do you want to go see a Broadway show and spend $300 a ticket, plus the parking, plus do you want to go to the movie house at the mall where it's, I don't know about Marshfield, but down the street in Pasadena, it can be $18 for a ticket, plus to park, plus the $30 for the popcorn, plus. So we're seeing, and the numbers will prove this out eventually, I think they already have, a resurgence. People are rediscovering television. There was not so long ago a conversation among those people about, what will the future of television broadcast be? Will it be sports and political coverage and debates and football games and holiday parades? Because that was sort of the worry. It was leaning in that direction because the worry was that they couldn't compete with what Apple Plus was giving them, and Hulu and Netflix, what they were offering up as content options to viewers. And then poof, March comes, and instead of running around all day and trying to be impressed with our busyness, we're at home. And we have to learn how to spend time with each other. And a lot of that time is spent with each other in front of television. And a lot of that time is spent learning how to reconnect. Put this phone away. Stop texting. Stop texting. Maybe email. Stop texting. Call somebody and say hello. Connect one-on-one, like we used to do, right? Because we need it. There's a humanity in that digitally can't be replicated. And so, again, it's a bigger, longer answer to a very simple question you asked me. We're not really giving up anything. We're evolving so that we're able to seek and find entertainment that's more customized and specific to our demographic and our interests. That has created a thirst for content and people to create the content. Actors, writers, producers, directors, right? So there's huge opportunity for people to create this stuff, huge. Now, it'll be a little while before the need and the economy and the ability to get paid what you need to be paid for that work will level itself out. But it will. I'm just really excited about where we're headed. I'm also incredibly aware of those who have paid a price for this, through no fault of their own. I have huge empathy for my friends who have lost their jobs and lost their ability to do what they love to do. But it's also been about reinvention and taking that inner look about, okay, maybe the world has given me a chance to do something else that I really want to do. So I think I'm thinking a lot about all of this these days, and it's always in a bright light.
I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, one of the phrases I came up with early on in the COVID epidemic was adaptation is innovation. And I think, what you're saying is that this applies so much to our world of theater and performance. So I'm very encouraged to hear you have this optimism. Now, how do we apply it? What's going on in school with you guys out there at Emerson, LA?
Yeah, well, nobody's meeting in person, right? We're all doing remote learning, which was frightening in March when we mid-semester stopped having our community in person, and we're thrown into this thing, this platform with all the squares and boxes and all the technology, which, you know, I certainly wasn't um, adept or proficient or comfortable with even. But again, where you said it, necessity, challenge, it's a zillion teachable moments. It's a learning experience, right? And so the challenge to stay, remain, continue to be relevant is around us all the time, right? Keeps us young, keeps us vital, keeps us interested, keeps us interesting, I hope. So it was a great adaptation for students and teachers. I had great sadness for the fact that they didn't get to have a real graduation. They sort of really were looking forward to that. But you celebrate in other ways. And I keep reminding my students, yes, I know what we've given up, but we're not going back to that. Right? It's like work. My friends who work at big agencies in big buildings in Beverly Hills where the rents are astronomical are working from home and are being probably more productive because they're more focused and there's less running around trying to see who can have the most lunches in a week. And they're not going to go back to those buildings. We're going to find new ways. We've found new ways to do the work that we want to do. And so again, business, it's not just the entertainment business, it's not just the business of acting. The world has reinvented how do you continue to do what you love to do with a different challenge and yet still fulfill a need that people find interesting. Haven't there been some incredible theater productions being done on YouTube by the Theater Guild and the Actors Fund, who benefit from a lot of these productions? I've seen some incredible stuff. And instead of spending, $50, $100, $300 to sit in a theater with all those people, I get to decide how much do I want to contribute to this organization because the actors are doing it for free because they want to do what they love and they want to help the organization do what its mission is. So there's great stuff out there.
Yeah, it is a unique time, obviously. I remember early on in this when, I think I might have mentioned this on the Dr. Joe show before, but I think the Metropolitan Opera was doing a benefit, and it was being broadcast live. And there's this conductor conducting his orchestra, but the orchestra is disparate. It's, out of their homes. And it was remarkable the way they were organized and synchronized. But the unique thing was I was looking at the conductor. I'd never been to a concert where I'd seen the conductor's face. I've always seen their back and them moving a baton. This was unique. And this is when I had my epiphany, realized, wow, we have an opportunity here to do theater in a way that has never been done before.
It's extraordinary. And last semester, I had my improv comedy class who were supposed to do a graduate end of semester performance in a theater in Los Angeles here. We did it on Zoom. And the challenge was that my students were everywhere from California to Istanbul, at time zones that made no sense, yet they were all there. And they did a live improv performance that was stunning, maybe more so than it would have been had we all been in the theater in Hollywood. And that was an epiphany for me going, wow, we can do this in other ways that really maximize the potential of all of this stuff that maybe we didn't realize the potential of before.
It is remarkable. Mark, I'm just wondering from a legal point of view, have you guys had to do virtual closings and
So, it's fascinating listening to Brad, because what he's talking about is it's industry wide. It is not discriminating in any industry, and everybody's adapting or they're not, right? It seems as though Brad, just from sitting listening to you, I would probably label you an entrepreneur, a problem solver, that type of person who's ready to adapt. Not everybody's adapting. I imagine there's peers of yours that panicked and weren't able to adapt and see forward. But yes, Dr. Joe, obviously everything has changed. I mean, we can't do face-to-face interactions right now. So the ones that we have to do in Massachusetts, the notary acknowledgement and these closings has to be face-to-face. We're minimizing the contact. So we're utilizing Zoom, which, can't say enough about Zoom 2.0, right? As opposed to the one you guys were talking about. And minimizing the contact to as limited period of time as possible.
It's also raised another interesting point that I think is more universal, and I've been talking about this lately. Is introvert versus extrovert?
Yeah.
Right? Because the business of acting is an industry that is perceived by most people to be a business of extroverts, and it's not. And if you're an introverted person in a business that's perceived to be a business for extroverts, and you have to work to do that, it's exhausting. But when you think about what is the challenge for introverts, a lot of it is walking into the room and kind of taking ownership of the space. This has been very empowering to them because you're not walking in anywhere. You're clicking onto a virtual space for an audition, let's say, right? And so it's very powerful. And people I know who are in therapy now are seeing their therapists virtually. And there's an intimacy that happens this way that allows stuff to flow that may take more time to get to or may have difficulty getting to at all in a space when you're actually really feeling the energy of the person in the room with you. So, again, that's part of what I see as what are the lessons we're learning from this. And again, I tap on the shoulder, I feel, which is, yeah, there's people really, really suffering. There's a lot of people who are struggling to adapt or who haven't had the luxury to be able to adapt. And we have to embrace those struggles for them and recognize that we have to do what we can to just kind of make this better for them. And I'm hoping at the end of the day, when all of this is in the rearview mirror, that we will be a kinder people to each other, right? Maybe that'll be the greatest lesson for all of this. It's just the understanding of listening, have a voice, let your voice be heard, and just be grateful.
Dr. Joe, Brad talks about two people being intimate over Zoom. It seems counterintuitive because, we're not connected, but is it because everybody's at their own home, their home space, if there's a leveraged situation, professional client or, interviewee, is it because you feel more comfortable and secure? And so does the other person, which we've never experienced. There's always been some imbalance at a meeting, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think having, especially in telepsychiatry, which is what we're doing, the person I feel has been able to open up so much quicker because they're in their nest. They're in their home, their familiar surrounding. And for me as a psychiatrist, it gives me a remarkable opportunity to see their world, not just hear about their world, but to see their world. Um, but what this speaks to is the absolute imperative for connection, that we as human beings must be connected to other people. It's part of who we are as a social animal. And what we're finding is that the distance, the quote virtual component, may not matter. I mean, think about letters. I mean, you know, for years, if you had a long distance romance or were, had a pen pal, it was all distant. It was all virtual. You were writing something and expressing yourself, and it would take time for that to get to someone else. And then they would read it and they would absorb it and they could read it again and again and again and then write back to you. So I think that we are rediscovering, if you will, just how important this connection is and how we can do it even if we're apart. One of the things, I say is, you know, social distancing is not the same as emotional distancing. We just want to be close with each other. But I want to get back to the business of acting with this, because in the theater, there is, as we were talking earlier, that remarkable energy that you have when you're sitting in an audience and you're seeing a live performance, somebody right there, and at the end of the performance, you get a chance to give them a round of applause. As a performer, you are adapting your performance to what you're hearing in the audience. You can see, you can feel that energy. That is not accessible now to an actor, a performer. So how do we teach them that? How do we get them to stay with that remarkable energy, even if they're not in the same room? What are you teaching them, Brad?
Yeah, so acting is acting, right? So when you're on a movie set or you're on a television set that isn't a sitcom that's shot before a live audience, you still have to do the work and you still have to deliver the product. And I mean, this one of the things I do in my classes, because my classes are very interactive, is that I ask/insist my students be unmuted for the entire experience, so that if I should say something that might be a little cute or clever, we get to hear the ha-ha or the there we go again. It's the ability to create that, not sense of community, but to create that real community in that space. So in some venues that works, but for bigger performances, I think you're giving up the audience response orally live that you hear, but you're diving deeper into the intimacy, right? So as a stage performer on a virtual platform, you're looking at the camera. You are looking at an audience member. And so you have to remember that, I'm not going to hear them respond in a way that I will recognize, but I'm connecting with them with my eyes. They're looking at me. And so I have an ability to speak to them in a way that they will feel that I'm talking to them. And so I think, you maybe give up a little bit of something, but you gain something else in its place. And at the end, it's still an important, fulfilling experience. The dessert tastes just as sweet. It's served to you on a different dish, right? And I think that's great lessons for actors, right? It's the ability to learn how to connect in a way where you're not in a theater space. And it's exactly what my clients do and all actors do when they're on a film set or they're on location. And, it's not about who's watching. It's about, what is happening in the performance space and it's a relationship, right? So now we're having relationships with performers in a way that we didn't before. I think it's resulting in deeper levels of performance and deeper takeaways for an audience. at least the stuff that I've seen performed that way, that would have been theater stuff. It's been just extraordinary. Bryan Cranston and Sally Field did a digital via YouTube production of Love Letters in the spring. I've seen that show 100 times. I've had clients perform that show around the country. I know that play, but I didn't know it like this. She was in LA, he was in New York, and there they were split screen on YouTube. And what an extraordinary theater experience it was. So I kind of hold on to that, and I'm seeking more of that, if that's of any help.
Yeah. Again, I am so appreciative that you see all the opportunity there. When you're teaching, you're not teaching theater classes, you're teaching the business side of this. So from a business perspective, what tips can you give young actors as they're entering this field? Because there's often a huge fantasy, I'm coming out of my high school performance or my college performance, and I'm going to just hit Broadway or hit LA. What's different now?
Yeah. Well, you may hit it, but I'm not quite sure what the definition of hit might be. Maybe it's just everybody has their own definition. I think that there are two lessons that I want young actors to seek out, absorb, learn, embrace, make your own. History, the lessons of history, and lessons of patience. I'm finding it unsettling that so many young actors don't have any idea of the history of this great industry they want to be in. And I think that you have to really study that in order to appreciate the opportunities that seem to be so easy and available to you now. You ought to know who the great producers, directors, performers were and what made them great, right? And I don't believe in paying dues. I believe in earning opportunity, and that's how you begin. And there is an illness of impatience when many students graduate from college. They think that they are perfectly suited to be and ready to have that career and to hit right away. Here I am, I graduated, I'm ready. Come take me away. But the fact is, those legacy careers are earned and they're built. And working actors, most of the people who work as actors in this industry are not the star names. They're not the names above the title. They're not the $1 zillion a movie people. They're not. They're like people I represent, like actors represented at companies all over, New York, LA, the big performance centers, who make this business run and who just kind of understand it's not about job to job. While it is, and it's about the career you're building along the way. And I want to disconnect the search and the idea of fame and the seeking of and securing fame for young actors, because you can't, right? Fame is a byproduct of just being great at what you do and being seen as a result. I don't know how to make somebody famous, although I represent well-known people. It wasn't anything any of us did. It was the work itself, an opportunity that the spotlight ended up coming to them. So I think the idea that I can hit big, I can hit right away, I can make a lot of money right away, are the important lessons I want young actors to embrace, right? And I want them to recognize that it is work, it's a job, right? And the reason I see most young actors give up is they see that it's work and they're not willing to do the work. I'm willing to help them do the work. You just got to do a little bit more than me, right? It's not going to happen on its own. So again, it's a simple question with a complicated answer that maybe you whittle it down to say, take a deep breath, know the industry that you want to be in, right? You would never go into the shoe business, shoe, not show, without understanding how shoes are manufactured, right? So I think knowledge is so important. And then you have an appreciation for what you get to do. I get to stand in the studio and look around and go, wow, who's been here before?
You know, one of my other phrases is I've worked hard to be this lucky. And I think that's, you know, that's what you're talking about. It doesn't just happen. You know, it is hard, hard work. And then it just looks like you're just so lucky. But
You know what?
it's,
Yeah, and you know what? It's not that it's hard work, because if you're doing work you love, it's not hard. You want more and more and more of it. What it is you just have to be willing to do the work.
yeah,
Right? Somebody else may say, wow, that it's hard.
right.
You know, you love it, right? It's not hard.
I couldn't agree more. Again, I keep coming back to the phrases, but you know, one of my phrases, success for me, and not for everybody, but success for me is when you love going to work and love going home. And I have been blessed with that. I love going to work. Now I get to do it from home. So it's like even better. I mean, who could imagine that that would happen? I have the best commute ever. But I also know that we have so many people who are supporting us who love what they do. They, I hope, love going to work. They love going home, and they love sponsoring the Dr. Joe Show. And so I could not be more grateful for them. Ben, let's take a quick commercial break and let them say what they love to do and what they hope other people do with that love. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.